Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. Jacqueline. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. Jacqueline at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. This is Talking Heads, and today I am your host and presenter, Mariska du Preez, and we are streaming live, all the way from New Zealand. And I do remember how much Dr. Jacqueline loves saying that. So because I miss it, I just incorporated it. We are also today starting with a brand new lesson. And our series is around building kingdoms. Or is that teams? Well, we will find out whether it's going to be kingdoms or teams. And one of the things that I would like to share with you guys before we get into the lesson, and why it has such a strange name, is an experience I had very early on in my corporate career, when I remember we went through a little bit of a reshuffle within the organization. And one of the managers said, "Oh, this is a great opportunity for somebody again to be building a kingdom, or maybe a great team." So that stuck with me. And recently I heard somebody else mention environments within our workplace as a kingdom metaphor. So they utilized it to explain a few of the ideas around communication. And I recalled what I went through initially during my first couple of years within the organization where I started. So I thought, well, that almost feels serendipitous. So I will incorporate it into this lesson, because this is a series about teams and teamwork. And of course, which better place to start than defining what a team is? So without further ado, let's jump into our lesson for today. So building kingdoms. Or was that teams? Lesson number 1. I want to first help to remind us about something that is very important. And I think we hear teams so much. We hear people talk about teams, the importance of teams, the how to build teams, all of these different things. But what is all of this really about? And I thought this African proverb actually says it so well. If you want to travel fast, go alone. If, however, you want to travel far, go together. And this is what a team is. It is helping us to go together. But of course, there's different types of teams, and we use the term team very, very loosely in general. We can describe a couple of people working together as a team, whether they really are a team itself or a group of people working together. We don't always distinct. And that, I think, is the very first thing that we need to do, is understanding what these groups actually mean. How do they work? How does all of this thing called teaming, teams, collaborations, What is it? Right. Is it just two people getting together and then doing something? And how is it that they do this something? Right. So let's jump into it. The three that's been identified is we have groups. So this is individuals that doesn't necessarily work together. It's a group of people that came together and there's something that they will work and there will be a result. Then we have a team, which is more widely used within our corporations, but we also have teams in other areas, as we will see. And then we have collaborations. Now, in a corporate area, that might look like different departments working together, bigger projects, that sort of thing. That is where we can collaborate. And we can also collaborate in different ways. So that's the three that we will be looking at for today. And when we think of each of these, I think the easiest way to explain it is using environments where we are familiar with working with other people. So when we talk about a group, what is it that we are actually talking about? Now, I know for myself, when I was in school, there was quite a bit of group work. And this actually describes groups fairly well. So a group normally looks at common work. So if we had a group at school, we will all sit around a couple of tables that we push together, and we will then start our group work. The bulk of the work will most probably be able to be done individually. So each person has a little snippet of work that they can do. They can do it for the most part by themselves, and then we will put all these different parts together and it will form a bigger whole. So any of us can do any of the tasks, and we just take a smaller portion of the task, we do that, and then we put it together. So there's a lot of individuality to the type of work that's required. Of course, in school, because we are always in the same class, for the most part, we might know each other, but for a group or group work, we don't necessarily need to know each other intimately. So we don't work together necessarily on a regular basis. We're not always in the same group. We change groups every now and again. Of course, in school, I remember not always being in the same group as my friends. So we will change it up. And the relationships within that group is prone to be surface level. And as I mentioned before, members do individual work. So we're very much focused on separate things. The leader, of course, because within any group or any bunch of people that decide to work together, there will most probably be some leadership requirement. Now, when we think about leadership, in this specific case, it would be more individual leadership. So I need to be able to lead myself. I need to be able to do the task that was set in front of me in order to be able to complete whatever it is that we're working on. Now, there's individual leadership, so I need to do that for myself, and so does each and every other person in this group. And then, of course, if we did decide on a leader for our group, the leader will look at individual performance. So they will look at what was given to me and did I do that, yes or no, and the next person, and the next person, and the next person. There also isn't a lot of interaction or conflict necessarily within these groups. So if we have very well-defined areas where we're working and we know exactly what it is that we're doing, and nobody is doing overlapping things, which normally in the group work type of scenario, that's not what happens, The conflict within that space is minimal, so the leader don't really need to worry about any of that. Then, of course, we go to team. So I thought this was a very illustrative little meme that shows us how, if one member in the team is not quite, well, in this case, pulling the way that they're supposed to, then, well, we're not going to go anywhere, literally. So there's a saying about the weakest link. In this case, we can see that poor dog just decided, well, either it's fun to roll around in the snow or he doesn't want to go anymore. One of the two, but whichever one of the two it is, it resulted in the rest of the train standing still and nobody going anywhere. And that's not what we want for our teams. We want our teams to be able to work together as a whole. So, what is it that we need to look at when we look at a team and not a group? So when we look at a team, members know each other well. They don't necessarily go and have social times together, but they may. So there is a lot more bonding that takes place within a team. The members know each other. There is a lot more collaboration within the team where it comes to the responsibilities as well as the results. So as a team, we will together succeed or together fail. As we saw with the one dog laying in the snow, if one of us don't pull our weight, yes, some of the others might be able to pull, but at some point it might not be possible. So we all need to actually work together to get the result that we're looking for. And it requires everybody's skill set to complete the work. So we will all, as individuals, bring a specific skill set to the table. And because we each bring our own skill set to the table, that's the part that is important. We might have some overlapping skill sets, but we need each individual in that team. And we need to work together in order to then get the result that we're looking for. And then, of course, we have clear roles and responsibilities. As we saw with the sled, there is a dog at the front and middle ones and the ones at the back. And normally the one at the front won't be the same one, won't have the same skill sets as the one at the back or the ones in the middle. So each one of them has a separate way of being within their space and a separate skill set that they bring. And that is how they can work then as a team. Plus they have those well-defined roles and responsibilities. So they know exactly where they go in their line. And then, of course, for the leader, the one that needs to look after this team, and in our little meme, that would actually be the person on the sled at the back. So when we think about leaders, we think about leaders a lot as the person at the front. And it's not always the person at the front. It has to also be a person at the back. So we have leaders in different spaces. As I mentioned before, for group work, the leader is more a leader within, knowing how to lead ourselves, and of course, having somebody that can coordinate some of the tasks. In this specific scenario, a leader might be somebody that's leading from the back. They're looking at the team dynamics, at the overall picture. They're looking at the health of the conflict and that we are having conflict in our team. Yes, this might sound a little bit crazy, but we do need to have conflict in our teams. If we don't have any conflict, it means that we're not talking. I am of the very high opinion that as human beings, we do not always agree. We don't. And that's fine. That's normal. We're not supposed to agree on everything, because we don't always look at it from the same point of view. We look at it from different points of view. And the only way for us to see the different points of view is to voice them. And then we will get conflict, because I see it from one end and somebody else sees it from a different end. And now we are not looking from the same side. So we need to have that conversation, which can sometimes get a little bit heated, to start to understand where we are looking from and how this works. So healthy conflict, definitely something the leader needs to look at. And then, sorry about that, the collective work. So our work is not individual in this case. We work together as a group. And then we have shared responsibilities, because we're going to have a shared result. So we need to look at the global view of it. And in the case of our sled, the person at the back can look at the dogs running towards the front. They do also do the steering, so that they can see exactly what is going on from a little bit of an elevated position. Then we get to the next one, and this is collaboration. Now, collaboration, yes, we can have collaboration with just 2 people or many people. The example that I have for collaboration is when we think of big projects. So think, for instance, of building a house, or a big project that you might have in your organization, where there is multiple disciplines required in order to make the bigger whole. So if we take something like a house, we have the physical structure that needs to be built for the house. Then we have all the electricity that needs to be installed, so the wiring, the lighting, that sort of thing. We might have some air conditioning system that we want to install, so that's a different skill set. We need to have the plumber to come and do all the pipes and all the rest for the water that we require. So each one of these are different specific skill sets. We cannot ask the electrician to do the plumber's work, or the plumber to do the air conditioning person's work, right? So each one of them, very, very specific. They know exactly what it is that they need to do. And yet, for them to build the whole house, they need each one of those. They also may have competing goals or competing tasks at any one point. For anybody that is in construction, they would appreciate the fact that when you have the different fit outs, you have the electricians wanting to do one thing, you have the plumbers wanting to do something else, and you have the guys that is responsible for the air conditioning wanting to do something quite different. So it can become a very mixed bunch of things that needs to be sorted out. So when we look at collaborations, we have extended outside team units. So we don't have one team that works together towards something specific and they have the same goals and same priorities and same everything. We have different teams working in collaboration with each other. So it becomes a little bit more of a mix. We have distinct or competing processes happening. We might belong to a bigger whole, so we want to build the entire house, but there's smaller pieces within that. And of course, as I mentioned, this can be a very, very high conflict environment, right? So what's it that the leader needs to look at? The leader in this case will look at things like building relationships, definitely conflict, so having healthy conflict, and it will be there in abundance. Negotiation. The leader in this case need to be able to negotiate really well, as I mentioned, with the plumber and the electrician and everybody wanting to try everything at the same time. We need to be able to negotiate so that we can see where the priorities or pain points is, what the critical path is for any specific task for us to complete our house, and then negotiate accordingly. So that is very, very important. And then, of course, communication, 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 not only with the people within the team, but also the external stakeholders. So we need to communicate with everybody constantly. One of the biggest things for all of these is normally communication. Hence why we did the communication lessons first, so we can understand how to communicate effectively. So now that we understand teams a little bit better, how does this work? What's it that we're going to look at further on down the line? So I thought this wee little maze illustrated it really well. So we have the start point where we think, okay, this is where we want to start. We know where we want to get to. We want to build our kingdom. Right. How do we get from the one end to the other end without getting stuck? We might start and then take a route and go, oh, crap, wrong place. Didn't quite get where I wanted to go, and I'm totally stuck now. This is a big problem. Or alternatively, we might take a different route, take it a little bit slower, get to a place, and then get ourselves turned around a wee bit, but eventually figure out how to get through everything. Now, the reason why my maze is in a triangle is because it links to a very, very interesting phenomena that Liccione actually showed, he showed us. He wrote a very nice book about the 5 dysfunctions of a team. Now, the things that we need and the pitfalls that we will get to, as we saw in the previous slide, those places where we get ourselves turned around or maybe get into a dead end where we don't know how to get ourselves out. So the areas that we need to look at when we are building teams and in collaborations as well is building trust. If there's no trust in the team, forget it. It's not going to go anywhere, right? We're going to get ourselves turned around and into corners that we don't like. Then, as you might have noticed, healthy conflict. We require that conflict. It is required constantly. Then, cultivating commitment. So within our teams, we need to be committed to what it is that we're doing and how it is that we're going to proceed, even in the times when we don't agree with what's happening. Then taking accountability, making sure that the thing that I say yes to is the thing that I'm going to do. And then actively creating the results. So we need to focus on the thing that we're actually building. We can't be building our kingdom and one person is maybe digging a moat and the next person is building the castle, but they in 2 different areas of the kingdom. Not going to work. So we need to actively create our results and be focused on where we're going. So these are the elements that we will be going through in our lessons after this. So the next 5, we will focus on each one of these. and then see how it is that we can build our high-performing teams now that we know what a team actually is. So thinking about your projects or the things that you have going around in your life where you are working with other people, what type of group, team, collaboration is it that you need in order to succeed with what you are doing? And then, how can you start today to build a better team around you? And with that, it brings us to the end of our lesson for today. Please get into contact with me either via my email, which is mariska@journey2discover.com, or you can visit my website, which is journey2discover.com. And I would also love to connect with you via LinkedIn. Write me a short little message and you can mention that you saw me on Talking Heads, and I will definitely love to connect. And with that, it is the end of our lesson for today. And I loved spending time with you as always. And I hoped that after today, you now know what type of team it is that you require to create that successful, thriving kingdom that you are building. And next week, we will look at how to build trust. So knowing that trust is the important base for building our teams, we will look at that one first. Enjoy the rest of your day. And that is me, Mariska. See you next week.